if you try to get right, then you listen to my dad. He's a beast. And if you don't want to listen to him, okay, you don't want to get successful. If you ain't trying to dominate, man, then go listen to something else.
Welcome, athletes, top performers, and all those looking to gain that killer instinct, that edge you need to dominate in any environment. This is the Sports Motivation Podcast, and I'm your host, Niyi Sobo. I played ball and succeeded at the highest levels, and I'm now committed to showing you how you can accomplish the ambitious goals and visions that you have. This podcast is designed to teach you high-level strategy, not just fluff and hype. This will cut to the core if you let it. And by taking action on the practical and next level advice I share, you will see results. Expect that. Expect to be more confident. Expect to be more focused. Expect to be more decisive. And expect to be more fearless. Expect to become the leader your vision needs you to become. So listen up. Take notes. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Sports Motivation Podcast. It's your host, Niyi Sobo. Today is a very, very special guest. Our guest has been referred to as Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan's secret weapon. He's worked closely with Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Clint Dempsey, Sasha Cohen, just to name a few. He's a very, very highly respected and sought after public speaker, performance coach, sports psychologist. And he literally helped transform the culture of the 90s Bulls, like the 90s, when they won all those championships and ultimately played a big part in that run. He was then recruited again by Phil Jackson to come do the same thing in LA, where he played a big part there as well. And he's overcome a lot in his life. He has a best-selling book that is absolutely one of my favorites, a book that I recommend to all of my athletes. You guys have heard me talk about it over and over. And he is, I believe, one of the rare individuals who has aligned knowledge with real life experience to create that real wisdom. And I always enjoy talking to people who have that type of wisdom, that type of life experience, but then again, apply that knowledge as well. And he's now sharing his message with the world, helping to teach people the art of mindfulness. So I am very, very honored to welcome our guest, George Mumford. How you doing, George?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, man. Doing great. So you got a ton to your story, man. And I know we just scratched the surface just a little bit. So why don't you inform everyone? Give us your story in your words. Like what led you to be where you are now, and give us the details of your story.
Yes. So summarizing it. So I grew up, one of 13. And so when I grew up as a young man, pretty much, being number 10, my thing was pretty much to be seen, not heard. And I had a sensitivity. I was very sensitive, but I didn't know what to do with that sensitivity. I could feel people's pain. Mm-hmm. I saw a rhino in the street. I was devastated. Somebody on the block moved. I was devastated. And I was always told, man, stop being a wuss. Just chill up, man up. Mm-hmm. Don't deal, just deal with it. And so fast forwarding, when I played athletics, I was injured a lot. I was on crutches and I was injury prone. And then fast forwarding to college, my sophomore year in college, I would have been a walk-on. I injured my ankle, and that ended my career. And because I had this chip bones, and at that time I was rooming with Dr. J. So I was very interested in playing varsity and playing with him, but I got injured, and that ended my career. And I didn't really know who I was if I wasn't playing sports, because I was one of these quiet guys that let my game speak for itself. So I got lost, and then fast forwarding years later, I got into abusing pain medicine, and then getting into abusing drugs and alcohol. And then fast forwarding to 1984, when I found myself working as a financial analyst. So I was very good at having a double life. During the day I was Joe College, and at night I was hanging out with Kool and the Gang, or doing things that you don't go home and tell your mother you did.
Right.
So I got to the point where I hit a spiritual bottom. You know, I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. And so I found recovery in the 12 steps. And then when I got clean and gave up the drugs and the alcohol, I had chronic pain. And so as a consequence of the chronic pain, I had to come up with a way of managing the pain without drugs and alcohol. So that's when I found mindfulness, or I found what they used to call in those days stress management, which taught me about meditation and yoga, and also about psychology of and the self-help literature in terms of understanding this mind-body process that I've been led to believe was separate, but they're connected. And so the other thing I discovered when I got clean was I have this need to be intellectually stimulated. So I'm coming up on 33 years clean, and I've read over a book a week during that time. Mm-hmm. Not to mention all the other videos and multiple books and stuff. So I'm just, I'm a learner.
Right.
And so that's how it took off, and I found it helped me, and then it helped other folks. And then I transitioned out of my job in corporate, and then I started working, teaching. I was very interested in teaching people how to get clear about, how do you motivate yourself to do what you know you need to be doing?
Right.
And how do you interpret people saying one thing and doing something else? So the nonverbal communication was very important for me, especially working with substance abusers when I first got into the field, and knowing that, having been one, that they get the game, they're going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. And then they're going to do something else. So I tell people, even now when I watch politicians, I watch everybody, you can tell me what you want, but I'm going to go by what you say.
Right.
By what you do, not by what you say. And it's an old saying, you probably heard it, do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into that, and I realized that this way of being present for life, this idea of having more self-awareness, having more of a sense of self, having more of a sense of personal responsibility, this idea of self-agency and self-reflection, and realizing that it was on me. It was an inside-out job. It's about me. It's my mind. It's my body. And I can choose to live according to, have a principle-centered life just based on how things work. And within that space, I could live according to certain values like love, compassion, enthusiasm, mm-hmm. Being competitive in the right way. In other words, like I can compete at a high level, or I can mean what I say without being mean when I say it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it was all about connecting to the higher power, which, I grew up Southern Baptist. So it's like, there's one who has all power. So you connect to the power source. That's how I call it. And when you live in the right way, you're thinking the right way, then you connect to that power source. So there's a way of relating to my experience in a way where, as I talk about in the book, I can create space between stimulus and response. And within that space, I can choose a response that's based on my values.
Right.
Based on what it means to be who George is, to be myself and not to be somebody else or to conform, but to actually let the masterpiece that's already inside of me express itself. And that, in my mind, it was the drug addiction and all of the difficulties that gave me a baptism by fire, if you will. So that's when our latent abilities come out, when we're really pressured. We have to have a sense of urgency, or I have to have the gift of desperation, or as I call it in my book, butt on fire. That's not the word I use, but I'll
right.
Clean it up. And that once we decided, okay, I don't want to live this life, but there's a life that I want to live. And how about focusing on that? How about using mindfulness and awareness and understanding to live, be who I'm supposed to be?
Right. Man, hey, so and let me know if this is okay with you, because you were addicted to some drugs that's a hard thing to overcome, right? And
yes.
3 years sober. And so let's see if we can use that transformation that you made within yourself as an analogy for any of the things that you and I and everyone listening deal with, right? Because what you had was a habit that was it was firmly entrenched habit and a hard one to break. but you,
yeah, and there were consequences if you didn't meet it.
Right,
You
right,
got sick,
right.
Yeah. So it's, believe it or not, it's kind of interesting reflecting back on it. I don't really understand how I was able to do all that stuff. But I do know that, go ahead. So continue your questions.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, so how did mindfulness play a part in it? And what is mindfulness? Like, how did this sort of look like? And I got to imagine that it was a lot harder than anyone who didn't go through something like that can imagine, right? And so what was that journey like? And how did mindfulness play a part in that? And if you can tell everyone what mindfulness is.
Yeah, so mindfulness is one of these concepts that there's a lot of definitions out there, and all of them are corrected to a certain degree. All of them are correct in some sense. But really, think about mindfulness. The easy way out is to say it's the opposite of mindlessness. In other words, it's presence of mind, is being present for your life. So I like to talk about it being like a mirror mind. So like if you take the proverbial mountain stream, and you have the snow-covered mountains reflecting on the stream. When there's wind and when there's turmoil and there's a lot of activity in the lake, you can't really see the reflection of the mountain in the snow. But once it's calm and still, you can see the reflection. It reflects it perfectly. So it's like a mirror. Mindfulness is this process that allows you to see things as they are. So that a lot of times what happens is we don't just see something, we interpret what we're seeing before we actually see it.
Right.
Mindfulness creates that space where you're able to let things speak for themselves in their own language.
Right.
So instead of always focusing on things based on what we already know, it's this idea of this willingness to be vulnerable and let things speak for themselves without any agenda. So it's an uncritical observation of your experience, whatever's coming through your eyes, to just see what's there without an interpretation of what it is or based on what you already know. Mm-hmm. It's just really being open and creating that space, because the way we interpret, the way we perceive things is there's a very short space of time which is just receptive. And then right after that short space of time, like the raw data, then there's the embellishment, the projection on it based on self-reference, like I, me, and mine, how is this going to affect me, all of that stuff. And then associative thinking. I remember the last time this happened, where you're focusing on what happened before, not on what's happening now, because even though it might look the same, this is a different time. Things change, you change. And then there's abstract thinking. Okay, basically, what does this mean for the future? Mm-hmm. So all of that stuff gets projected onto the sense data or the raw data. And so we don't really see things as they are. We see things as we have experienced them in the past.
Right.
Or what we're expecting in the future. And the idea is the only time we can live is now. So mindfulness is this quality of being in the country and now, being in this moment, focusing on what's happening right now while it's happening in the immediacy of experience.
Right.
Not based on what happened before, what might happen, but right now. Mm-hmm. And so that's what it is. It's like, even as we're talking, just talking and being here now and listening. And it's interesting because you have an interesting job, because you're listening, but you also have to be formulating the next question.
Right.
So at some level, your ability to just hear what I'm saying and let that come in without any agenda and everything, then you can really hear it in a fresh and new way. And so we have this ability as human beings to step back, step aside, observe our experience, both internally and externally, in a way where it's new every time. It's fresh. Mm-hmm. It's fresh. So mindfulness allows us to see things with fresh eyes, hear things with fresh ears, as if we're hearing it for the first time. Now, here's the interesting thing. So even though it's the thing we encounter multiple times every single day, there's where the familiar becomes a mystery, becomes exciting, because you're seeing it differently, because you're different, it's different, things are constantly changing. So in that change, you're seeing things as they are right now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so there's power to that, because now when you compare what you thought was going to happen to what actually happened, that gap is going to be a learning.
Right. That's powerful, man. This is for me, right? So one of the things that makes it hard for me and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, is, when we're told to accept things, right? Accept it first, and that's the beginning of change. I find that accepting it sometimes is difficult because it feels painful sometimes. And I think it's because of these old meanings that we've attached to it over and over. And so as you get better at mindfulness, does it become more easy to accept things without feeling that a lot of pain that we might have associated in the past?
Yeah, well, here's the interesting thing. I'm glad you said that, because there's something happens and then we interpret what that means.
Right.
Instead of letting it speak to us without any interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ain't interpreting it, there's no pain there.
Right.
But like right now, even if you think about the most painful thing that you thought about, you dealt with, right now in this moment, there's nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's just what I've created.
Just let that sink in for a minute. So the pain is telling you that you have an attachment,
mm-hmm.
or you're saying to the sense data you shouldn't be happening.
Right.
So there's a non-acceptance. So sometimes we say, okay, so we know being angry is not a good thing, especially you're an angry black man and you're a different considerable size. You are a threat, my man.
Mm-hmm.
You can get shot. Okay? So you don't want to be anywhere near anger, but it's only by feeling that emotion we call anger and embracing and saying, okay, there's anger in my mind, there's anger in my body, there's anger in my chest, or there's this sensation. Forget about calling it anger, and just being with the raw sensation and just feeling it, letting it be there, creating space for it, instead of being in a story about it, which proliferates it. And then now you got a whole story, and now you're getting angry and angry instead of just saying whatever you experience is not you.
Right.
It's just a mindset, but you're identifying with it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can create space and say, okay, there's pain there, and you can tell the nervous system is wired. If it's pleasant, you're going to move towards it. If it's unpleasant, what you call approach. If it's unpleasant, you're going to avoid it, or what we call avoidance. And if it's neither, you're going to space out.
Okay.
That's just how the nervous system is. So when we have something, we're seeing something, it's not the seeing, it's the emotion or the discomfort that we're seeing or experiencing, because it's triggering some old memory.
Right. Right.
Or some experience that happened before that's not happening now.
Okay. And so the skill becomes to do your best to sit with the pain and eventually start to separate yourself from it, so you don't associate to it anymore, and you can create a new meaning or a new story.
You need to create space between stimulus and response, and in that space, you can just watch it and let it be there without being identified with it. So there's a big difference between being aware of thoughts and being lost in thoughts.
Okay.
So what happens is you feel something, and the feeling leads to behavior. So you feel uncomfortable. You are not going there. You're going to withdraw. And so someone will say, well, in order to get rid of this, I want to act like I accept it and then move to the next thing. And I'm still pissed.
Right.
Okay. Instead of saying no, the idea is awareness, then accepting of it, which means that I'm accepting the fact that I am looking at this in a way that is painful.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I see that I'm looking at it, and then if I see, well, there's another alternative, I look at it like, oh, this is interesting. This is not me. This is just what's happening. And this is based on what happened before. So if I just let it be and let it filter through, then it's not a problem.
Right, right.
But these things are happening. So you asked me, am I able to do this? So here's the thing. We all have certain things that are easy for us to just process. And there's other things that we keep getting stuck on.
Mm-hmm.
It's too emotionally attached and it's too deep. And so the best thing we can do is say, time out, dude. We need to put that one on the side and give it up to God or whatever and just move ahead. But what happens at some point is you start to realize, because you create more space, you start to see the difference between something happening and then the interpretation of it. So I wear glasses. So I get on hate glasses. So I'm looking at you. I ain't feeling no love. None. Okay. Now, if I got on the love glasses, it's all good.
Right,
but
right.
The problem is, without the mindfulness, you forget you got the glasses on. So mindfulness tells you, oh, you got the love glasses on, George. How's that working for you? How you see things? Okay.
Right.
You got on the hate glasses. Okay. So what if you just put on glasses that were non-judgmental?
Right.
Okay. So now the mindfulness is a way of really understanding what lens in which you are observing things through, so that you know that there's a relationship between how you see things and how you behave.
Yeah, I love that analogy, man. I use a similar analogy with my kids. I tell them like your emotions is like an outfit. Like you can change it if you want.
That's right.
And so practically,
but you gotta accept that you got one on first.
right.
You gotta accept that. That's the acceptance. Say, okay, I got this shirt on, and I have the option to change it.
Right.
So that's that interim step, because a lot of times we do things in order to get rid of stuff instead of doing it and just creating space for the discomfort and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's another term I use in my book a lot. That's probably the most important thing. Why? Because think about as much, and you know, as you go through this, so as much potential and possibility I have, there's going to be the same amount of anxiety there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the anxiety is there. Because why? Because I have to die to my old self to be a new self. So there's going to be a grieving process and a letting go. And every time I feel that anxiety, I'm going to be thinking, okay, I made the wrong decision, or I didn't practice enough, or some reason. Instead of saying, no, the anxiety comes with the freedom.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. It comes with it. But we don't really talk about it that way because it's too existential, just like the fear of death. You got to deal with death to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to deal with the possibility of being isolated, because what are relationships for? So you realize when you're relating to someone, you are actually being vulnerable to being hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's how we relate to people. You can't trust without vulnerability. So you have to understand that there's these concerns that we have as human beings that go beyond everything. It doesn't matter what we're playing. We got to deal with death. We got to deal with isolation or dizziness of freedom. And we got to deal with what? We got to deal with this idea of meaninglessness, or that we don't have instincts to tell us what to do. We have to decide what to do. And even when we don't decide, we are deciding.
Right. Man, that's what you said about anxiety, that the grieving process, I've never heard it said that way, which makes so much sense. So you're saying that in order to grow, you need some old part of you has to die. And that anxiety is that grieving process, but we don't like that anxiety. Like we don't want to feel that, but you're saying we have to.
Right. Let me be as blunt as I can. When I went into the detox, the same George that went in, if that George came out, I'd still be getting high.
Right.
Okay. So I had to change how I was occurring to myself, or how I was seeing myself, how I was seeing what's possible. Because see, once you realize that, oh, there's a possibility of me doing this, by you seeing that possibility, you're going to have courage, you're going to have faith, you're going to have optimism, and you're going to move forward. But if you look at it and say, oh, you know, I can't do that, that ain't going to work, then you're already lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because you already decided you can't do it.
Right.
And their self-talk will tell you that, as well as your body language.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's got to be more, you got to be willing to be uncomfortable, because you know that where you are is not working, and you're willing to go into the unknown. See, that's where the anxiety comes from, because now you're going on a road unknown, or you're going over the hill, and you don't know what's on the other side of that.
Right.
Even though we like to think we know and say it's going to be great, we have no idea.
Right. And you know,
instead of being honest about that, we kind of act like we know what's going on. And when the reality is, we don't know what's going to happen from moment to moment. But if we know that we have this ability to create space between stimulus and response, and the mindfulness and the wisdom, understanding how things work, how we work, will give us the ability to decide how we're going to be in that change.
Right. Man, it's funny, because this is what I found as well, is that the anxiety that we avoid, which is inevitable if we want to grow, we avoid that because we don't like to feel that pain, that discomfort you're talking about. But then what I found is that the illusion of the comfort that we have by staying the same, it's an illusion. It's not even real. And we end up dealing with a much more prolonged, like almost dead-end anxiety, but it catches up to you long term. And you see it on people. You see it. We wear it in our body language, in our face.
That's right.
So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so there's normal anxiety, a natural anxiety that goes with the process of evolving and growing. And then there's the anxiety becoming neurotic, because all of the accumulated resistances and the denials of anxiety just building up.
Right.
And then the psyche. And so the idea is, if you look at kids, what kids are really good at, or young children really good at. So if we don't mess with them and they evolve naturally with their curiosity and their sense of wonder, when they go into the anxiety, they ain't seeing anxiety, they're seeing adventure.
Yeah.
And they're seeing like, this is a new world. This is going to be great, you know, because they don't know anybody. They just know that it's all good, you know, and they're just moving into it. So that's what we have to develop, that ability to get comfortable with being uncomfortable or seeing the mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like Socrates said, wisdom begins in wonder. So if we start looking at, well, what is this like? Oh, I wonder, this is interesting. So you have to have curiosity, interest, a willingness to investigate and say, well, let me see if this is true. So Niyi tells me, okay, George, this is a concept. So it's up for George to say, okay, is that true or not? Let me go into my own experience and see if it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the power comes from, is, you know, you can have faith, but it's got to be verified.
Right.
Your experience. And so you keep asking, well, what is it? Is that true? Is it not true? But can I go in with a willing suspension of disbelief and just see, like a kid? Well, I'm just gonna be uncritical and see what speaks to me, to see what it is. Let me really see it the way it is, not the way I want it to be, or the way I don't want it to be.
Mm-hmm. And that's funny how you said that, because we see, you know, you talked about you read a book a week. Like, some people at your level are unafraid to learn and challenge their new beliefs. I was reading Sam Walton, you know, and anyone can believe whatever they want about Walmart, but he was still alive to be the richest man in the world. And they said his biggest skill, like, he was unafraid. He was never afraid to admit he was wrong.
Right.
And Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, he said as well, he said, the only thing like that he wouldn't challenge is the laws of physics. Everything else he could challenge. He can see if it's true or not. He can go and verify, like you said, that whole like diving in and learning. Is that what you found to be true with the players that you work with, the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans?
Yes. There's a commitment to excellence, or courage, or unwillingness to be deterred, or to allow doubt or faith to come in.
Mm-hmm.
It's this willingness to say, okay, is what we call strong self-efficacy or resilience. You know that I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I get to choose my attitude.
Right.
Okay. And I know that if I just pay attention, and if I work hard enough, and if I just can be mindful and just let it speak to me, at some point in that, like, be still and know, in that stillness, there's a knowing, there's a wisdom that comes out and says, okay, this is the way out.
Right.
Or this is how you do it. But you got to have patience. And this is where the courage and the perseverance, the diligence comes in, where you keep doing things. As Winston Churchill said, he said, success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm.
Mm.
So this is what these folks do. This is what I do. So each difficulty, each mistake becomes a challenge and an opportunity for growth.
Right.
So you can look at anxiety as a good teacher that teaches you to keep moving, and that you're growing because you're feeling you're on the edge. You're on that edge of, you're in a high state of arousal, but you got to be in that high state of arousal to get into flow.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So, and how you do that is when you're in a high state of arousal, you know, if you an elite performer, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to keep on keeping on because I'm close. Somebody else is going to say, oh man, I bit off more than I can chew. I can't handle this. This is awful.
Right.
It's the same situation, but it's interpretation. It's because you're coming from that space of can do instead of I can't.
Right. And so with these players that you work with, and you talk about flow, right? And what does it look like practically? Like, what sort of things would you go in and teach and show them how to do in order to get them familiar with this art of mindfulness, in order to get them to the place where they're comfortable with that anxiety and they can ultimately experience that flow state that seems so elusive, that everyone talks about, that we all want? How do you teach someone to get into that?
Yes,
state?
well, how you do that, because you keep pushing that envelope. You got to be comfortable. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And if you are comfortable, you ain't growing.
Yeah.
And so but you do it in a gradual way with ease and understanding, letting things speak to you so that you start to collect the intelligence. So it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together, right? You put pieces and you say, okay, that one didn't work, whatever. Then what the mindfulness does, it reminds you, oh, that piece, I know what that is. Then you put that in, then you put another piece in. So the mindfulness and the wisdom of clearly knowing is working together. Then you get a full picture. Then you say, okay, I got that. Then you put that aside. Then you start the next one.
Right.
So you got to stitch things together, and you got to go over the terrain multiple times. And each time you go over, you pick up a little something.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to have the patience. This is where slow motion gets you there quicker.
Right.
Instead of the tortoise in the hare. That's about. Like you can go fast, then you fall asleep, and then you snooze, you lose. Or you can go slow and steady and get there.
Yeah. But in steadily pushing yourself, you talked about like, because always feeling, you're going to feel those every time you grow, there's an old party that's going to die. So you're going to feel that anxiety, and that courage to not run from that is the key, right?
Yeah. But here's the thing, we can get used to anything.
Mm-hmm.
They call it exposure therapy. I mean, if you're afraid of something, heights, you keep exposing yourself to more and more heights, then at some point you won't be afraid of heights.
Right.
So it's exposure therapy. So like me, I used to be afraid of getting up and speaking. I'd shake and all this stuff. But I've done it so many times now, it's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if I do feel butterflies or I get really excited because it's, you know, I'm really excited about it, I can just let that excitement be there and just be in that eye of the hurricane and just say, okay, it's there, but I'm going to go up and do what I need to do, and it's going to be fun.
Right.
So that's a mindset. You know, your mindset, because it's a mindset. It's like once your mindset is in the moment and has enthusiasm, excitement, and is looking forward to something, then all you got to do is get out of the way. You might have to hold the person back a little bit because they're going to be so excited to move on. Now you got to be able to be a little bit poised, but still channel that. That's martial arts. How do you channel that positive energy? And so it becomes a laser beam. So it becomes tight. But that's what we have to do. So each person, even though I give you these concepts, each person has to work it out for themselves.
Right.
Inside out. So this is where it gets to be a challenge for right effort, because what worked for me may not work for you. So each person has to do it for themselves. So someone like me, a teacher or a facilitator, I'm going to give you some clues, but then you got to figure out which ones are going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the more you and I talk and the more you ask me and tell me what you want, then I can titrate it and say, okay, I can start to give you some options that are consistent with who you are and what might work for you.
Right. That's powerful, man. And I find that, you know, we tend, and I say we as in human beings, we almost like want things to be given to us. Like we want to know like, what's the secret? And that's one thing I've come to appreciate with hearing from people like you who have wisdom, is that there is no right or wrong way. The ultimate thing is you have to find your way. And in order to find your way, you're going to have to actually, what I call, go through the fire. You have to go through it. You have to do it. And to go through it, you're going to have to feel that anxiety and that challenge. So talk about what sort of things have worked for you. Like what sort of things have worked for you in terms of what is your practice or your routine every day that helps you, you know, create that space in between, you know, stimulus and response, and choose the new meanings and new associations and things.
Yeah. Well, for me, I see mindfulness and wisdom working together, or mindfulness with clearly understanding what am I doing and what are the basic principles involved and that sort of thing. So for me, it's not just sitting in silence and stillness, which is really important. And when I initially came around, that was the primary way I practiced. But it's like from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, I can be mindful. I can be, even if it's only in a rough way, you know, how am I feeling? What's my mind? What kind of mindset do I have? What's my inner dialogue? How's my body feel? Is there tension? Is there ease? So there's this way of relating to myself and also asking myself questions like, well, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. And why am I doing it? And is this working? Is it not working? How do I know if it's working or not? So there's this ability to, from moment to moment, and to study, to read and to reflect on what mindfulness is and what it means to be present for life. And does it matter what I hold in mind? What's my focus? What am I holding in mind? What am I directing my attention to? All of these things are really important. So it could be a lot of things. I'll read books about psychology, philosophy, whatever, about how other people pursue excellence or how other people do certain things. It's really, a lot of it is study and practice. So learning, practicing, performing, but formal practice, informal practice, talking about it. But the best way to learn something is to teach it.
Yeah.
So like I said, I learn a lot because I'll teach and I say, okay, so how can I relate this thing, or people say, well, what is mindfulness? So each time I answer that question, it's going to be different because my mindset's going to be different, and my attitude is going to be different. And I'm also thinking about how do I talk about it in a fresh way right now.
Right.
So some of the basic concepts will be the same, but how I see it, how I communicate it is going to be different. Each time. It'll be the same, but different.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Absolutely. You talked a lot about the books that you read and the different type of things that you're interested in. What are some of the books that have had the biggest impact on you, and talk about the impact that those books have had on you?
Yeah. So I was speaking at this conference back in October, and someone asked me that question, what books would I recommend? And I'm sitting there and I'm coming out of that. I had a hurricane and the Bible came out. It just popped up. And I said, whoa, that's interesting. I didn't expect that one. But then I realized, I started thinking about it. And then I realized, well, I grew up Southern Baptist, but, when I go to a hotel, every hotel has a Bible.
Right.
But, I hear myself, be still and know. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Asking, it shall be given to you. Seeking, ye shall find. Knocking, it shall be open to you. And all of these other sayings, but they're not dissimilar from what the Buddha says, or what Muhammad might say, or what the Torah might say. It's all about love and compassion, and about cultivating wisdom, about relating, getting beyond what I would call the illusion of separateness. That we are separate. We are all connected, even though we're not aware of it. And every once in a while, when 9/11 or some other thing, or you see somebody in danger, or like the marathon bombing, people were moving towards the explosion, not away from them. So that's when you go beyond yourself and you just, we connect. That wall, those walls break down and you realize we are all one. We're all trying to do that. So every once in a while, when you can be still and know, you start to realize that, this is an illusion. We have this idea that we're separate, but we're all connected. So what I do to you, I do to myself. So if I look at it this way, all that I give to you, this is what the Course in Miracles says, all that I give to you is given to me. All that I give is given to me. So if I want love, I ought to be giving love. If I want understanding, I ought to be developing understanding.
Right.
So, but if I'm giving hate, that's what I'm getting back.
Right. That's it. And that's a heavy thing to grapple with, the idea that we're all connected, that we're all one. I grew up in the church as well. My dad was a pastor, and as I started learning a lot more, and this is what I'm really curious to know from you, because you said you grew up Southern Baptist, right? And so you, as you evolve, you start to grow and learn, you realize that maybe the way that we saw religion growing up maybe wasn't the way that we could see it. Maybe there was another way. And so what sort of transformation did you take in terms of how you approach the Bible, church, God, your understanding of God? What sort of revelations did you have? And what's your philosophy on that now? And I know that's a heavy question, but
Yeah. Well, I talk about it in my book. The first thing you learn in 12-step recovery is you have to develop your own concept of a higher power or God. Or divinity, however you want to describe it. And that's what makes it a very powerful spiritual program, because it's not religious in the sense that you have to think a certain way or believe a certain way. It's more about your relationship to the cosmos, or to the divine spark, the masterpiece, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, whatever you call it, we all got it. And it's like we're all connected to a World Wide Web, okay? And depending on what language, what software you use, you can connect to it. Okay. Right. So for me, so I read a lot I just read a lot of philosophy and about religion in general, but it was really more about me, one way of relating to divinity is relating to it through the qualities of divinity. So whether it's beauty, love, compassion, selfless service, any of that stuff. So I look at it that way. But for me, the Bible speaks to me just like I can read the Buddha's words, and it speaks to me and then the Zen, because it speaks to me because there's the martial arts with the Zen, right? There's something about martial arts and sports and me being kinesthetic and in the body. Something like that's going to relate, right? Studying Tai Chi for years, Qigong, Keto, whatever it is. But it's really more about understanding that all of those physical things, even basketball and all of those things, what are they for? They're for developing the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Not the other way around, where you develop the mind so you could do that. Yeah, you could look at it that way, or you might look at it the other way, which says that whatever we do is an opportunity for us to transform. And for the mind to transform, because everything starts there. This guy, Edgar Cayce, they call him the sleeping prophet. His thing was, he said, the spirit is the life, the mind is the builder, the physical is the response.
Mm-hmm.
So your mind, what you hold in mind becomes your reality. So there's a book called The Strangest Secret. And the strangest secret is this: we become what we think about all day long.
Right.
So once again, you hear in the Bible, you see it in all these other places. Your thoughts create things, like you create with the word. And the Bible starts off with the word.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I use everything. I don't limit it to the Bible. I don't limit it to this one. But at certain times, certain periods of my life, some things speak to me more than others. Now, it just so happens somebody like Edgar Cayce, somebody like Dr. David Hawkins, somebody like Devil Goddard, they use the Bible to teach spiritual principles. And if you look at the Bible as a metaphor for our internal life rather than a historic event, it's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever works for you. So for me, I am the father of one. What does that say? What did Jesus say? That the heaven is here, but we don't see it. It's right here. It's not in some place in some future time. It's here and now.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever helps me to be in the moment and to be an open heart, open mind, I'm good.
Right.
So we could, whatever the software is, don't matter. It's just making that connection.
Yeah.
If it resonates with me, then I'll use that more. So to me, mindfulness, the Buddhist teachings resonates with me a lot. Just like Jesus' teachings, some of the Hasidic teachings, they all resonate at different times in different ways. And so right now, and it seems to be most of the people I'm listening to, they're using the Bible and they're using some of those concepts. But those concepts, like whether it's the five, what we call the 5 precepts or the 10 commandments, they're basically the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's about non-harming.
Right.
It's about not transgressing because you feel something. It's more about living in a moment and getting beyond the illusion of separateness. But the fact is, things are changing constantly. And how am I going to be in that change? So these spiritual principles, love and compassion and pursuing excellence and wisdom, allow me to be who I am in the context of that change. And who I am is a becoming.
Mm-hmm.
It's always becoming. It's never arrived.
Right.
So once I understand that, it doesn't matter. So to me, it's more about, so how can I relate someone like you? So I'm helping you to release your divine spark.
Right. Right.
Your Buddha nature, your Christ consciousness, your Kuan Yin, or your Sufism, whatever it is, that energy, you can call it what you want, but it's the same energy.
Right. And seeing what the work that you do, and even seeing the work, and we're going to talk about the work you do with kids, and the way that you approach that work, you do it with a sense of urgency, with passion. And it's because you believe like we all are one. So when you're helping me to do that through this interview, like you're helping yourself to do that. You're helping everyone do that with
That's
everyone
right.
listening.
Yes. And I'm dealing with a lot of little Buddhists, okay? Or a lot of little Christs, or a lot of little masterpieces.
Right. Right.
And I ain't dealing with no kids. I'm dealing with divinity.
Yeah. I like that. And we're all at our different stages.
Yeah, and so my challenge is to meet everybody with love and blessings.
Mm-hmm.
Even people who are calling me names and all that stuff. Can I create stuff? Now, and I have to admit, I'm not totally there. So somebody put their hands on me, that's a whole other thing. But you get what I'm saying. But I'm not putting out any hate, but I ain't going to let nobody hurt me.
Right.
And so, but the thing I found is, and this is something else I got from the Course in Miracles, when I defend myself, I am attacked.
Whatever you resist persists. I've heard that it said.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So maybe what I hold in mind has a lot to do with what I encountered than I thought.
Right. Right. And
So if
maybe
I don't like what I'm getting, then I need to change my mindset using your terminology.
right. Right. That's powerful, man. That's powerful. You talked, you alluded to this, this whole idea of the AOF, right? The ass on fire.
Right.
Talked about like, you need that sense of urgency, and you had that because, you know, like your life is in danger. If you continue, you know, your life
right.
probably would have ended. So how do you go about helping someone, you know, get their own ass on fire or create that spark, maybe when they're not dealing with a life threatening, maybe they have these insidious habits that, you know, show up in different ways, but they're not as threatening right now, but you know, later they'll come up to bite them. How do you help someone cultivate that fire that they need?
Yeah, well, you really can't. I learned, especially coaching people, if you want it more than they do, you're going to burn out. You know, and here's what helps me with that. It's not for those who need it, it's for those who want it. Okay, so here's what happened from my own experience. So for me to really get on the path, I had to have my butt on fire. But, you know, after I stopped drinking and drugging, my butt wasn't on fire. So then it became the joy of discovery. And pursuing excellence and wisdom with grace and ease. So it doesn't always have to be sense of urgency, but there's got to be a hunger.
Right.
There's got to be a want to. So desire, and they talk about the number one thing that is most cited by elite performers and their coaches is the number one thing is the desire to succeed.
Desire, yeah, hunger.
So you got to have a desire. You got to have an intense burning desire with a plan for its attainment. And so, as they say, this is one of the Zen sayings from the East: to know and not to act is not to know at all.
Oh man, yeah.
So people say, "I know." Come on, man. If you ain't doing it, you don't know it.
Right.
It ain't about what you say. You know, like Buddha said, "Do or do not. There is no try."
Right.
It's, you know,
yeah.
That's what Yoda said. Yoda said that. Do or do not. There is no try. Now, what's he saying? Just like some of the Hasidic teachings when a dude is fasting and he says, okay, well, I'll drink, no, I won't drink, or I'll drink, no, I won't drink. Then he gets through it and he goes back and then his master says, patchwork. I said, what do you mean? Well, I got through it. Yeah, but your mind, your heart, and your soul were not united. You didn't do it as all of a piece. So if you're going to do something, you got to have your mind right.
Yeah.
So that your heart is right and your body is right.
Right.
Without that alignment, it's patchwork.
Yeah.
You might get it, but the quality of it's going to be totally different.
Right.
So when you have a sense of hunger or a sense of wanting to serve, so for me, sometimes what helped me write my book was not because I wanted to do it, but because I wanted to alleviate suffering.
Yeah.
I saw that it was needed and it can help people. So sometimes it's easier for me to do it for somebody else than do it for myself.
Right.
But here's the deal. If I am one with the other person, I am doing it for myself.
Right.
That's a good one.
But you knew what Yeah.
So, and sometimes once we get that way, so because we talk in conventional language, but at bottom, if you really see that if I'm helping you, I'm helping me. And it's not that I'm helping you with the intention of helping me. No, I'm helping you with the intention of being of service and helping you. And then the other stuff will come. I don't have to look for it. So the best way to get love is to be loving.
Right.
The best way to have peace is to be peace. The best way to have understanding is to be understanding.
Right.
Same with forgiveness. The best way to get forgiveness is to be forgiving.
Right.
This is too simple, man. This is too simple for that complicated mind that like to multitask. And the ego say, I gotta justify my existence. So let's make this real hard.
Right.
You know, and then I can say how complicated and intellectual I am.
Right.
It's like, come on, man, you up there, you know, you got to drop down here.
Right.
You know, up here is like, you know, that only gets you so far.
Right. And that's the, like I said, man, I said in the beginning of this interview, I enjoy it. I enjoy speaking to people like you because if you listen throughout this, everyone listening, you've been able to take really complex things and make them simple for us. And that's wisdom. And that's right. Powerful, man. So to take it where you can now, you're teaching this to kids, man, like little children. And I remember you talking about.
Well, I don't know if that's true. I think they're teaching me.
There we go.
I'll give you an example of what I mean. So my godson, when he was like 2 years old, I'm over visiting the parents, and I have him in my arms, and his parents are talking to me, and I'm talking to them, and he puts his finger on my mouth. Like that. I said, no, dude, you're talking to me. Come on, man. Come on, dude. He said, no. He said, no, you talking to me. They ain't got nothing to do with this.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So, but I have to be present and not just switch them and say, wait a minute, I make the decision. No, this is just listen, dude, because they're telling you something. You know what I'm saying? So the kids are already in that mode where everyone's one, but we pull them out and then we tell them that, you know, why don't you do what Johnny's doing instead of doing what you're doing? Or we don't love them. Part of love is to respect them and to help them grow as they are, even if it means they grow away from you. That's love. Love isn't this thing where you're controlling and you're making sure you're making decisions. No, you got to be able to see that that's 100 pounds of clay, that song goes. That's all that is like, so unless we we got to teach them to be able to form or shape themselves from the inside out.
Right.
So we got to let them know they got resources. So the sooner we can teach them that, hey, man, they might offer you a joint or say you got to be in the game. You could say, you know something, that's not in line with my values, Saints, but I'm out of here.
Right.
Or, you know, like these terrorists, you know, you feeling so disconnected, you can go blow up other kids. Come on, man. There's a disconnect there.
Right.
And if there's nothing there, if you don't know who you are, you can end up being anybody. That's a perfect example of that. Somebody else is going to come in and fill that gap and say, why don't you do this? This is what I want you to do. And you end up doing something somebody else wants you to do instead of doing something you want to do. Right. So that's where this is about. This is about, we got to get them kids earlier so that them other dudes that are out there, they're manipulating and proselytizing this hate and all of this bigotry and the fact that, you know, they're devils or they're not human. We got to get them before they do. Right. And it's not like we got to get them. No, it's as simple as just if everybody is who they're supposed to be, then we're good. Yeah. All right. And if they share that with everyone else, then that's what I call utopia. Right. In my mind, it ain't no place. It's a state of mind. Yeah. And that's tough. And you have that. It sounds like one of the qualities of a leader is to have the patience. Because there's a great book. It's I actually got the book from reading Phil Jackson's book, and he talked about the Tao of leadership, right? And I read this book. I think it's John Heder, and he was talking about a job of a leader is like being a midwife. Like you're not giving birth; they're giving birth. Your job is to assist them. And I feel like many times as leaders, and I've been guilty of this, we try to like go in there and pull the baby out. We want to rush it. That's right. Rush the other person's process as opposed to, because I have 5 children, you know, and so I'll get frustrated with my son, like, nah, man, you got to do it this way. And it's like to be able to instill, to teach the right values, right, but then allow him to have the patience to allow him to go through his own journey, and like you said, to really love him. Even if he goes off stray, quote unquote, or, you know, decides to smoke the joint or do the thing that I don't want him to do. And to know that it's all a part of his process. Cause I've heard you talk about your journey as well. Like you don't regret anything. It's like, this is what I had to go through to be where I'm at. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's, you know, you bring an interesting point. When I first started teaching this, I had a wise teacher, Larry Rosenberg, and he used to tell me, if only one person shows up, you have to teach. You know, so it's idea, and it's funny because I remember when he approached me and said, "I want you to teach." I said, "I don't want to teach," and he said, "That's why I want you to teach." Because
like Moses.
So I took this fable of Johnny Appleseed. So when you're doing this, and I'm suggesting this as a parent, even though I'm not a parent, I have them on an installment plan. I have students, athletes, and some of the high school kids that I work with, that their parents allow me to have an influence on them. As I'm Johnny Appleseed, I go around and I'm just throwing seeds, and wherever they're going to take root, that's it. It's not my job to see which ones. My job is just to treat them all the same, to put them there expecting the roots to grow. Right. And so that's what's helped me with that, so that I don't take too much responsibility, even though I regress and slip sometime and do it. And then when I'm in pain or things ain't working, then I can say, okay, you know why this ain't working. You got to let that go and go back to basic fundamentals, which is mind your business. Mind your business.
Right.
And let them, because if you start making decisions for them, now they're going to be looking at you. Now you own it. Mm-hmm. Pottery barn rules. You break it, you own it. No, that's on them. So the best we can do is, and this is what leaders do, leaders make other people leaders. So you have to share the power.
Right.
You have to make them ownership. So on some level, some people are going to embrace that ownership, but a lot of people don't want to own nothing. They want you to tell them what to do. But there's a lot less stress when they do that.
Right.
You feel me? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing. So if we all have this idea that we all are, want freedom, that's bull. A lot of people are very comfortable being comfortable and not wanting. And they say that there's a book called Good to Great. The enemy of the great is the good. So if you, that's why you get people, they win a championship, when they get there, they get satisfied. There's only certain people who are going to keep pushing because they're not satisfied. They're always looking for some other motivation, some other way of saying, okay, how far can we take this thing? So it doesn't matter who we're playing against. We're playing against our previous best self, so that we're always getting a little bit better today than we were yesterday. We're not settling.
Right.
And that's how you get in the zone, because once you get in the zone, then that becomes routine. And so even your brain, the way the brain works, it stops firing because you do it so many times, it's grooved. So it doesn't fire anymore. So you have to create more brain connections so that you're always in that stimulated, that high state of arousal, and then moving to the next level. So you're always pushing your capacity. So you're pushing your capacity, but you're also pushing your challenges. You're always challenging yourself beyond, and not settling for what so-and-so did. No, you did 10, maybe you can do 11.
Right.
Maybe you do 10 and a quarter, 10 and a half, 10 and a third, and then you get to 11 and you say, okay, that's cool. Maybe I can get to 12.
Yeah.
And so, but then your motivation for doing it is totally different. If it's self-centered, that's a different energy. But if it's okay for the greater good, or it's to see how far I can take this game, or how far I can bring this excellence, this just being excellent in everything all the time, not in a way where it's stressful, but in a way where it's joyful. It's this joy of discovery, and it's this new adventure, because I don't want my kid or my nephew or my charges to settle for less when they know they could have done more. So that's what Coach Wooden always talked about, is when you get a team might be really good, but they're only playing half of their capacity, that's not so satisfying. But if you get somebody that's not that good, but they're playing at their full capacity, that's a winner.
Yeah. That's powerful, man. That's powerful.
So I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but it's just coming.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. That was a lot in there that I could go a ton of different ways on, and I want to respect your time. I have a question, because a lot of people want to hear from you, right? We want to know about the Kobes, the Jordans, all these people, right? And you talked about the desire to succeed being like the number one quality that you see in all these guys, like all these people who are achieving at a high level. What other qualities, like what other common threads would you see with all of these guys that you've seen, that you roomed with Dr. J, your coach, Michael Jordan? What are the other qualities that are common amongst them all? Like you see, and it's like this.
Yeah. So it's corny: character, integrity, humility, which comes with that character, a willingness to learn. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing about all of these guys, or these people, is that there were some of my best students. And even now, if you talk to them, they're my biggest supporters.
Right.
See, because there's, I don't want to say this. So it's this, just the humility, the integrity, the humility, the being really good people, but being really, really intelligent, really wise, understanding, and seeking wisdom and wanting it. Yeah. Wanting to go to the next level, wanting to serve and do things. So even though we talk about individual stuff, but at bottom is this willingness to be part of something greater than themselves. And the other thing that's key to them is having really good coaches and mentors.
Right.
See, because you can't do it alone. And so you can have the good coaches and mentors, but if you don't have the capacity or the willingness or the hunger, that's not going to help. So it's having all of those things, having parents and having a structure, having people around them that would hold them accountable and not just tell them what they want to hear, but telling them the truth, because the truth shall set you free. So that's the thing. The other thing is their ability to accept things, and also this idea of the constancy of change and realizing that they have to be proactive and not wait for things to happen, but have initiative, take initiative and be the change.
Right. In themselves first, right?
What did you say?
In themselves first, in themselves.
Yeah, because it's got to be inside out and you got to take it from you. But then this what a leader does. So you have to do things. So, I mean, I remember a lot of times when people, when I was with Dr. J and they say, well, what is about this dude? I say, he's the nicest person you ever want to meet. He's a great person. As good as he is at basketball, he's a better person. And people say, really? I said, yeah, really. You know, so everybody's different, but their IQ, they're learners, what Phil would call learners.
Right.
You know, he's catching a lot of heat with the Knicks and certain people and everything. But the fact of the matter is, you got to be a learner and you got to be willing. So here's a system that's been used to win umpteen championships, and people, and even the people on TV say, "Oh, it's an antiquated system. It's this and that." No, it's based on principles. Principles are timeless.
Right.
They don't change.
Right.
But what it is not so much the triangle. It's a process. It's a format. You got to play out of a format, because if you don't know where you are, how are you going to know where you are going or how far you've gone?
Mm-hmm.
You got to have structure, because in that structure, that's where the freedom is.
Yeah.
So I know I'm throwing it at you, but this is the thing. So all these people have never won anything, think they know everything, and I'm sitting there and I'm wondering. And I'm listening to him now. And with this, I don't know if you know who Bernard King is, but he was this, I don't know, power forward, played for New York. He was a prolific scorer and everything. He said he made the all-star team playing on 5 different teams, 5 different styles. Yeah. He said, the youngsters today, they want people to adapt to them. He said he adapted to every style.
Right.
But that's why you got to know who you are, so you can be who you are no matter where you are.
Yeah. Like a Coach K, he talked about he never coached the same team twice. Every team, it's different.
That's
same
right.
with Phil Jackson. That's powerful, man.
Yeah. That's the thing. Is like but that's being mindful, being in the moment and saying, okay, recognizing if you see things as they are, then how you see is how you're going to be and how you're going to do.
Right.
So if you don't like the things you see, if you want to change the things you're looking at, you got to change how you look at them.
Yeah.
That's what Dr. Wayne Dyer says, you got to change the way you look at stuff, and that's how you change things.
Right.
So seeing and behaving are connected. We keep thinking that they're separate. They're not. So when you see things a certain way, your behavior is going to be a certain way. Right.
It's powerful, man. And when you said the structure and the freedom, man, I was actually literally just talking with my children the other day, because, a lot of us, we kind of avoid like structure and plans. And I was telling them, like, you get more freedom. Like the better plan, the better I plan, the more calm I feel, like the more free I feel. It's like, right. I feel good. So I really liked how you said that, man. And I love how you bring up Wayne Dyer, because when you're talking about planting those seeds, like I love that analogy. It was Wayne Dyer when I heard him say, like, people can only change when they're ready. But so our job is to help get them ready. And I believe that you've helped a lot of us get ready, man. Like, and so we're all on our own journey. Everyone listening is on their own journey. Maybe you have things you want to change, struggles, all those type of things. I know I have mine. And you dropped some game, man. This was real game, and this is exactly what I was expecting and more. So I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy dude. I felt super fortunate that you reached back out and accepted to do this, man. So anything that you want to share before you leave, where we can find you, how we can follow you?
Man, we're gonna keep in touch, because here's what I'm thinking. And it's one of the authors I read. I don't know if it was Think and Grow Rich. I think it was Napoleon Hill or one of those. He talks about the mastermind group.
Yeah. Yep.
So you have to have other people that you connect and you're encouraging, and it takes a village, man. That's all I could tell you. And I am accepting the fact that even though I don't feel like it, it may not look like it, I'm an elder, and my job is to make space for leaders, for other innovators, or other thought changers, other people who are on the path of selfless service and wanting to make things better, because we have to balance all of the haters out there and all the people who are not interested in don't seem to be interested in humanity, or maybe they're just making the wrong choices and not understanding that there's other choices. I don't want to judge anybody, but at the same time, I know that you got to have conversations that lead to right action. So it's not right thinking leads to right action. Sometimes the right action leads to right thinking. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we got to do. We got to just put it out there and keep doing what you're doing. But I really appreciate what you're doing. So
yeah, I appreciate it.
It's easy for me, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, man. I look forward to meeting you in person. I go to the East Coast a lot, man. So I know you're in the Boston area. We're definitely gonna have to link up, man.
But I'm out there. Where are you?
I'm in the Northwest, so Portland, Oregon.
Okay, yeah, that's one of my favorite places, man. At the 5-star bookstore. I mean, not the 5-star, but that bookstore there, Powell.
Yeah, Powell's Books. Yeah, I take my kids there.
Man, I used to go there with the Bulls and the Lakers, man. Come on, man. I go there and buy them books. I told you about the books, right? Yeah. I go there and buy me books 10, 15 cents, man. I come out there with 20 bucks and say, I got to get a new suitcase, man.
Right.
Now I do the Kindle thing, but I still like having them in my hands.
Right. No, that's cool. We'll have to go to Powell's, man, grab some coffee and just hang out and talk books.
Yeah.
Man.
Okay. When I get out there, I'll definitely look you up.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, George. I appreciate it.
Okay, man. Okay, Niyi, you be cool, man.
Absolutely, man.
All right, man.
All right, peace.
Yeah, peace.
Thank you for tuning in to the Sports Motivation Podcast. Make sure if you dig in the podcast, go and subscribe so you can always get the latest episodes. I come out with a new episode twice a week on Tuesday and Friday at 3 a.m. Eastern. And make sure you go ahead and rate it and leave me a good review. As always, I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon. Much love. One of the most common questions I get from athletes all the time is this: what is the single best thing I can do to reach my goals? How can I set myself apart from everybody else? Obviously, there are a lot of things, but the one thing that's helped set me apart was having a coach, a mentor, someone to show me the right strategies and how I need to do things specifically to achieve my results. So you could try to do it on your own, but you'll end up making many mistakes that could have been avoided if you had someone guiding you and coaching you along the way. 99% of athletes in the world have expert coaches to show them the things that they can't see. If you want to work with me as your coach, I want you to go to IMNOTYOU.com/SRC and learn more and sign up for a free coaching session. I'll give you 60 minutes of my time for free, and I can teach you some dynamic strategies, plus show you how you can secure me as your sports results coach. All I ask is that you fit in this criteria. You're serious about your sport, you're willing to invest the time and money, and you have clear goals of taking your game to the next level, or some sort of specific results you want to achieve. This is definitely not for everyone, and I have very limited spots available for this. So, if this applies to you, I want you to take action. Go to IMNOTYOU.com/SRC, and I guarantee you're going to take your game and your career to the next level.